Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day. I know it's a bit unorthodox that I'm making a video like this because I typically save these for the weekend, but I found an article and then I found something else and then I found something else as I dug deeper, and I thought it was quite interesting. We have spoken about Bitcoin futures before and its effect on the market, but I think this is actually quite interesting. I mean, I haven't found like the holy grail. I haven't, figured out the entire puzzle, but it is quite interesting, and I'm sure you'll figure it out as I'm going through everything. So to start things off, as the fluctuations in the price and trading volume of Bitcoin continue to flummox the oracles of CNBC, a noted Japanese economist has written an article to explain what he thinks killed off the 2017 bull rally and began this 2018 bear-driven roller coaster ride the cryptocurrency has been taking. Japanese economist Yukio Noguchi wrote an article last week for the Japanese periodical Diamond Online that is getting a lot of attention among crypto traders. In it, he links the start of the Bitcoin futures market with the end of Bitcoin's meteoric price rise in December of 2017. The CBOE began trading Bitcoin futures on December 10th, 2017. That day, the price of Bitcoin stumbled, dropped about $3,000 in a day. It rallied from there, gaining new heights as it hovered at the threshold of $20,000 for a few days before bouncing up and down, gaining and losing thousands every other day. By January 6th, it had fell off a cliff and has never gone back above $10,000 in 2018. In Noguchi's own words, translated from the original Japanese, he said, "Because it is now possible to trade on Bitcoin futures, you'll never see a rapid surge again," end quote. Apparently, Noguchi is not alone in his opinion that the creation of the Bitcoin futures market was key to ending the 2017 bull run. According to Forbes, nearly the same argument was made in May by economists at the Federal Reserve Bank in San Francisco in a paper titled How Futures Trading Changed Bitcoin Prices. The paper itself reads, "The rapid run-up and subsequent fall in the price after the introduction of futures does not appear to be a coincidence. Rather, it is consistent with trading behavior that typically accompanies the introduction of futures markets for an asset. Unlike the usual roundup of old financiers who seemingly weekly predict that the bursting of the Bitcoin bubble, like Warren Buffett, who has likened the cryptocurrency to rat poison, economists at the Fed compare the price drop to other markets that have experienced rallies and market corrections. Using both the housing market crisis and the Japanese stock market devaluation in the 1990s as examples, the Fed economists point out that the new financial instruments have a record of deflating financial bubbles. In this case, as excited investors drove the price of Bitcoin up, the futures market opened and pessimists were able to hedge their money against the cryptocurrency, bringing the value down." So one of the major things that I've been most confused about is that not even on the topic of Bitcoin being decentralized, but on multiple people around the world owning it, or even the whales who are in the market who have large portions of Bitcoin. I've been confused, to say the least, as to why. I'll show you, first of all, I'll show you this. I looked up this is CME, I think, yeah, the CME group, their current price of the Bitcoin futures at the time of me making this video is 65. The CBOE has a price of 65, and Bitcoin's current price is around 65.99. So more or less, they're all exactly the same. I've been trying to figure out, or just really wondering, if you have ever looked at the Bitcoin prices before, and I mean from any other moment before mid-December of 2017, all the way to the back, there was almost never a time where the prices constantly went sideways. This is completely unorthodox. This is one of the main reasons why a lot of people got into Bitcoin in the first place, is because of the fluctuations. This is why when a lot of the bankers talk about that they're into Bitcoin, it's because of these fluctuations. They love the up and downs, simply because, it's a lot easier to trade and make great profits. But for some reason, especially the last 2 or 3 months, the prices have literally been going sideways. And this is what I'm kind of talking about when, there are a lot of people who have, we've discussed this multiple times, who have large portions of Bitcoin. There are people who have 30,000, there are people who have 100,000, there are people who are trading even on any given day with around 3,000 back and forth. The fact that the market would move sideways, the only other time that I've ever seen any other coin move sideways is when people were telling me months and months ago to look at other coins, and I realized that they were either scams or they're fake, or I decided not to talk about them. And the prices were always kind of moving like this. There was always a rapid drop, And then there was always a subsequent like rocket ship that went back up. But still, even after that, you know, normally there's hype cycles. So the market will shoot up if the hype it cannot be sustained and people lose interest. There's usually a fall after, but it doesn't trend sideways. And I haven't been able to figure out. I am not an economist. I am not a know-it-all, as many of you might not think. But the fact is, it doesn't logically make a lot of sense that Bitcoin's price would follow the future price. I don't think it's vice versa. I think for some reason, we've seen a huge stabilization in the price of Bitcoin simply because we have futures, which doesn't correlate, if you understand what I'm saying. Bitcoin's price never really paid attention to anything before. We had some days, obviously, where we'd have really good news. We had news about Lightning, we had news about this, we had news about SegWit. So this would kind of raise the price up and down depending on if there was going to be a fork, or people were going to get extra coins out of the deal, or simply if we had a day where the price had gone up by around 14%, 15%, the market would continue skyrocketing until the news about this had kind of worn off, and then we'd see a price going back down. But it seems that wherever the futures go, this is where the price of Bitcoin goes. So it kind of leads me to, how do I say this? It makes me wonder if the people who are dealing in the futures, because typically it's usually only like a couple thousand people, it's not 100,000 people at any one given time, if these may be the same people who are also the whales in the Bitcoin market. Because there doesn't seem to be any logical reason why the price of Bitcoin that fluctuated massively before, when you had on any given day possibly 50, 60,000 at least people who were dealing in Bitcoin, that the price would be sliding sideways. So digging further onto this, I tried to look for information on the futures market and how it has affected other markets. And one of the main things that I read was that there's like a well-known phenomenon that has happened multiple times with people who are manipulating futures markets or get into futures markets, that what they do is they suppress the price of whatever they're trying to get into, and they accumulate as much as possible in an effort to be able to skyrocket the price once again, only to let it fall back down so that they can rebuy it again, and they do this cycle continuously over and over. So I found this article on medium.com. It's called, "Will the Futures Market Do to Bitcoin What It Did to Gold?" So if I can remember correctly, right, see, without having to read into every single little part, he first starts off with, it's actually a lot more up here, but I'm not going to go through all of that. He starts talking about silver, and he says, sometime during the 80s, there were these two guys called the Hunt brothers, and they actually bought up so much silver that they actually ended up controlling 2/3 of the silver market, and they drove up the price by 700%. At some point, there was a problem. They couldn't meet their obligations that they had in the market, and the price of silver actually fell from $48 all the way down to $11 in around 5 months. He has the price of silver during this entire event. So this huge skyrocket after they had gained control of it, because they apparently had so much money that they ended up buying as much silver as they possibly could. So when you're looking for silver to buy, these were literally the people who had it. And they also bought up a huge amount of the silver futures that were in the market as well. Sound kind of familiar? And this is kind of what happened to the price of silver. He also goes through the Ethereum Bitcoin charts, which is actually almost exactly very similar to this chart up here. And then he even goes on to Dogecoin, which has that same drop up and down, but over and over and over and over again. He says, note, Doge was famously pump and dumped by a pseudo-anonymous trader named Wolong, who later wrote the so-called God PDF documenting his strategies for manipulating the price of Doge. For those who were not into crypto around the time when Doge came out, I remember Wolong because Wolong was very kind of similar, not the same, to what we have in Bearable Guy 123, I think that's the name of it. The one who is predicting the price of XRP. Not in that they are doing the exact same thing. Bearable Guy is kind of predicting where XRP will go, and Wolong pretty much said that he was going to control the price of Doge, so it's kind of different. But I remember when this was happening, it may sound dumb right now, but there was a moment where people thought that Doge was going to be where Ethereum is now, or even potentially where Bitcoin is. I know it sounds, you read the name, it says Doggy Coin or Doge, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But there was a point where we thought that Doge was actually going to be integrated into YouTube, into Twitter, into all these other things as like a tipping coin. Obviously that did not happen. And at some point when we were having these pumps, it was the, that euphoric moment where the prices are going up and everyone's like, this is finally happening. The coin is finally getting its dues. And then Wolong actually came out and said that he was doing all of this. He disappeared. I mean, a couple times after that, no one, as I assume, ever heard from him again. But all of these euphoric bumps were completely done by him. So if you have time to read God PDF, actually quite interesting to see how he did it. A lot of it has to do with complete sentiment. You can, whether you know it or not, completely change how people feel about something. And if you do this in large waves, you kind of get bumps up and down just like this. But continuing on, so you kind of see the exact same thing with Bitcoin Cash as well. Let me see if I can find exactly the most important part. So, right, he eventually goes into exactly what happened during the when gold first got its futures market, according to around the same exact time when Bitcoin got its futures markets, and he kind of stretched them out, and this is what he got. They are incredibly similar, gold being the orange one and Bitcoin being the blue lines. Kind of odd that they are that similar. He said in 1974, the first gold futures contract was traded on the COMEX exchange in New York. Trading started on December 31st. He says, look what happens next. This is the chart once again, with the orange one being gold and the blue one being Bitcoin. He said the initial reaction wasn't pretty. A nearly 50% drop in price over 2 years. This is the drop that we see right here, and this is the subsequent drop that we actually kind of have in the Bitcoin market right now. He said, can we say for sure that this was caused by the future markets? No, but it sure is interesting that gold had an all-time high the day before the futures trading began. Same exact thing with Bitcoin, the exact same pattern, I want to say, is the exact same thing that followed. Bitcoin was nearing its all-time high, and then the futures market dropped. And the Bitcoin slowly began to drop with it. But the gold had an all-time high the day before futures trading began, a price which wasn't again seen for 3.5 years. Since I sped up the Bitcoin timescale to overlay with gold, the gold bear market on the late 70s is equivalent to about 4 months in Bitcoin time. The crypto market moves very fast. I'm sure you have noted that even if you have been in the crypto market for a relatively short amount of time. They say that anything that happens in the real world happens in a very short amount of time in the cryptocurrency market. You may have also heard when I was reading about Bitcoin futures before, a lot of people were saying that they were actually scared that we would have a bear market for around 2 years. I guess they looked at the charts. I guess they pieced everything together. And a lot of people were afraid that we would have this entire event for over the next 2 years, which would have been, I think, completely devastating to the morale of the cryptocurrency market, because as gold has been around since the beginning of time, rather traded for the last couple thousand years, 2 years doesn't really break the spirit of people who are into gold or who have been dealing in gold for a long time. But 2 years, or around 24 months, 700 days for the cryptocurrency market that is still relatively new, would have had a detrimental effect. So he said he sees this equivalent event being around 4 months in Bitcoin time. He said after the bear market ended, a new uptrend started. Zooming out to now, we can see what happens next. 2 more complete market cycles brought the price of Bitcoin to a nearly 10 times increase from the all-time high the day before futures were launched. This is the other chart, and this is kind of where we are now as well. Give or take, I assume this little blue line going up here should have dipped, because this article is actually a bit old. This is why it's very interesting, because this person more or less predicted exactly what was going to happen. This is why it's called Will the Futures Market Do to Bitcoin? Because I think this happened a couple of days before the Bitcoin futures actually came out. And now we know for a fact that this blue line here actually dipped back down, and this is the dip that we are in right now. So he says, what could we expect? He says, I wouldn't expect the Bitcoin trend to follow the gold trend exactly, which it kind of did. But if it did, we would see a large drop that would bottom out in April of 2018. If you remember, when do you guys remember me talking all this news about all of these experts and all of these analysts and all these people doing TA talking about when the Bitcoin price would bottom out and then subsequently go back up again? It was all around April 2018. Also in May, we saw an enormous amount of news from all these people who were predicting that the Bitcoin market had bottomed. Look at my other videos. I don't think I had it in the title, but even Google Bitcoin bottom April 2018, Bitcoin bottom May 2018. I'm sure you'll find at least 15 different articles because all these people kept on coming forward. Like I said, they were probably looking at the exact same charts. He says, remember, Bitcoin is moving at 4.3 times speed of traditional markets. He said, followed by an eventual rise to 60,000 to 80,000 before another major pullback with a final run up to 180,000. So this is what he's talking about for the price of Bitcoin. And it's really interesting because I found a lot of these articles over the last couple of weeks, and I'm not even joking, actual weeks, about 3 or 4 weeks. This one is from June 30th, and I decided not to put them in because Bitcoin price predictions, I mean, unless they're kind of funny or someone's talking about Bitcoin is going to hit like 10 trillion in 3 weeks, kind of pointless to put into the video. But a lot of people have been coming out with these price predictions or saying that by the end of the year, Bitcoin will hit $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. And how do I say this? It is interesting that they are saying these exact numbers when this is the exact number that this guy over here is giving. And also that the entire event would only not take that long for it to happen. And I told you guys before, I said I have a feeling there's a lot of talk about how high Bitcoin is going to go. People keep saying it's going to hit $1 million. People keep saying it's going to hit $500,000. There was a video yesterday or today where the guy was talking about that Bitcoin could potentially hit 5 million. According to this guy, whoever he might be, and the charts that he has, apparently the 60 to 80,000 is probably going to happen. Don't quote me on that because I do not know the future. Whatever you might think is possibly going to happen sometime this year because we have seemingly more or less bottomed in price for Bitcoin right now. And so this is where if we're trading around 6,600 right now for Bitcoin and we hit 80,000, I told you guys, this is the point where I would probably get a little afraid because I think Bitcoin is teetering on the point of government interference completely. So 80, 90,000 before another major pullback. I said that before. I think if we hit 80,000, I think Bitcoin will definitely tumble back down. I want to say to 15 to 20,000 without a doubt. It's definitely possible for Bitcoin to lose around 75 to 80% of its value. Definitely possible. Final run up to 180,000. At that point, I would probably, I think I'd probably be done with Bitcoin. Like I said, no one knows the future of Bitcoin. But when we start hitting multi-trillion-dollar valuation and it's actually a threat to the banking systems that we have, I assume that we're going to start to have a lot of other news from governments and organizations talking about exactly how dangerous Bitcoin is and how it needs to be stopped. This is, I want to say 2023. Let's go back to this video in 2023 and kind of figure this out. But yeah, this is kind of the thing that I pretty much wanted to talk about is everything that's been going on around here, especially with all of the news. I think a lot of these graphs are very, very interesting. I noted a lot of people were talking about the Bitcoin futures price around December. I was reading it in the comment section. People were talking about that they figured that this was actually going to happen to the Bitcoin price, and you were completely correct. This is exactly what happened. There's a lot of talk about another pull up in price, but even then, I think, man, I don't even know. I think the next drop back down when we hit 50, 60, 70, 80,000, I think that'll be the end of about 90% of the market. I don't think the other altcoins will be able to handle dramatic drops like that. I think Bitcoin will at some point solidify itself as a major coin, but I think when Bitcoin becomes too much of a threat, I'm pretty sure there's going to be something put in place. I don't know if it'll be 10 million futures contracts, but the price of Bitcoin will be eventually stabilized. This is actually something that a lot of analysts have also said as well. They don't think that Bitcoin will continue to have these crazy rises forever. At some point, it will be almost as stable as an everyday currency, and that the price will not fluctuate more than 0.5%, maybe even less on any given week. So that's something to look forward to, a stable Bitcoin price. But yeah, just kind of more or less wanted to talk about it. There's a lot of news that I leave out of the weekly news. Like I said, there's a lot of jibber jabber, if you want to call it that. A lot of things that aren't really important, but a lot of things that potentially when you link them together to other things that are kind of happening, they do kind of become a little important, because I'm pretty sure all of these analysts are definitely looking at charts as well, and they're trying to figure out exactly what has happened to other markets when they have been affected by futures markets. But it's still, I know people have made fun of me before when I said I was flabbergasted or perplexed I don't know why. I mean, they are words in English. But it's true. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels this way. This is, Bitcoin has always kind of been crazy, but it's always been on its own. You know, nothing ever, Bitcoin dictates the price of other cryptos. The other cryptos don't dictate the price of Bitcoin. So the fact that it's kind of being tamed and or held back right now by just a couple thousand futures contracts that are being floated back and forth kind of makes you wonder if it's literally the people who are the whales who are just trying to accumulate more. Like I said, we had before that guy who accumulated, what was it, like 30,000 Bitcoin over the course of like a 4-month period, which is absolutely insane to think about. But as of now, this isn't meant to be a Bitcoin is definitely going to go back up, get your wallets ready kind of video. It's kind of we've had so much news, especially from even, what was it, like the US government is also looking into futures market manipulation. They wouldn't waste their time unless something was actually going on. If they'll be able to do anything about it, this is kind of the big question, simply because we don't have official things from the SEC. So like I said, we spoke about futures before, but I think this is going to be a very trying time for Bitcoin. I don't see anything that could potentially push Bitcoin out of this. As of now, it looks like the Lightning Network won't be available for quite some time. Even Liquid, which is also another sidechain option for Bitcoin, is still like kind of in development. It could be done within a year, something like that. So there's nothing really big that is going to push Bitcoin away. The only hope in my head and what I've been reading around is this is also why we have had so much news about XRP taking the #1 spot, Ethereum taking the #1 spot, and Bitcoin futures taking the #1 spot. Why? Because I think Ethereum has one futures contract on its back right now. I think they're trying to make the futures contract simply because it has now been deemed not a security. But the other coins that are in like a regulatory gray space kind of, or just not as popular as Bitcoin, it appears that because they're not or cannot or at the moment are not being hampered down by any futures contracts, this could give them a chance to be able to skyrocket and pass by Bitcoin. Whether that's going to happen, no one really knows the future, but it is all very interesting to think about. I wonder about these sideways movements. If you get a chance, please, by all means, go to CoinMarketCap or wherever you decide to get your prices from. Everyone has their own little place where they like to go, and actually look at the charts. Look at exactly how Bitcoin used to be, and then zoom to around the last 4, 8, 12 weeks, more or less, and you'll see that Bitcoin's constantly going sideways. And this is why we have so many of the analysts on TV constantly talking about that they don't understand what's going on with the price of Bitcoin, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense that Bitcoin would be going sideways at all, especially if you think about having 50,000 people around the world, if minimum 50,000 who are trading, and then all the other coins that are also pegged to the price of Bitcoin, causing it to kind of float sideways. People who are into technical analysis, they tend to say that these small fluctuations indicate that we are on the verge of either a breakout in price or the price could slam back down. Either way, yeah. Didn't mean to spend too much time on this, but I think it's, when you look at a chart like this, you kind of have to wonder, like, what is really going on in the market, and can, the US government, like I said, is trying to look into all of this. Can they actually do anything? Can anyone actually do anything? The other things that have happened in the market, I think the gold market I think the gold market is still suppressed. The silver market actually only had its tumbles simply because of the brothers not being able to pay back their dues, or they just weren't able to meet their obligations, and this is why it fell from, what was it, 47 to around 11. What could get Bitcoin out of this entire rut? I don't think anyone knows, but I think for the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a lot more price predictions, because now we are officially in July, and this is still the time that all the analysts have said that the rally would happen. We saw a slight rally a couple days ago when Coinbase opened their, what was it, the rich people custody thing. And there's a lot more that's supposed to be coming as well. I gave you guys the video a day or two ago about the things that are happening in Q3 of 2018 of this year. So there's a lot that's supposed to be happening. but if any of it will actually affect the price of Bitcoin or get the rest of the coins moving, because there are a lot of coins that come out and they're constantly talking about that they can push by the price of Bitcoin. Don't know if that's actually going to happen, but I'm going to stop rambling on. I think I'm kind of done. I think I'm done. I think I've said everything that I needed to say. I wanted to just kind of get everything out because a lot of times, you guys know, I hold myself back. Are the markets manipulated? Definitely. Will they be able to get out of it? I think that we definitely will. There was something I was reading before. It was an article somewhere. I can't remember for the life of me where these things are. And it was this guy talking about that there's going to be a massive short squeeze on the Bitcoin price relatively soon, in that all the people who are betting against Bitcoin, all the people who are saying that the price of Bitcoin is going to go down, he said something is going to happen relatively soon where the Bitcoin price is going to gobble up all these sell orders that all these people have. And these people are going to be very upset because they were trying to buy Bitcoin at $4,000 a coin, where they were expecting it to go down, but it's only going to go a lot higher. And this is where these 50 to 80,000 price ranges are coming in. I mean, the Bitcoin controls the market, but if you're holding an altcoin, Bitcoin going up to 50 to 80,000 will also be a very good summer and or Christmas for you as well. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my rambling. I know I can go overboard sometimes, but I really like to just kind of dig and see exactly what I can find. I don't want to, no, I'm not going to, it's not me talking down to people, but I get so tired of other crypto channels just talking about the price is definitely going to explode. The price is definitely going to do this, but no one actually digs really deep to see exactly what's happening in the market. Something is obviously happening, and it's kind of, got to dig around a little bit to see exactly what. Thank you once again, and I will talk to you all soon. See you.